Oh, do you have a copy of that, Eddie? We'll share that around.
Copy of it.
When we first started getting into this movement, Deanna and I, we had some friends who were kind of leading the way for us. You know, they were doing it, so we started following, listening to them, going for study. Well, on Shalom to you.
Hi.
On Friday nights, they have a kadosh, bread and wine, but they also they washed hands, and they did it. They poured the water over the right hands for so long and so many times, and you know, kind of watching that, and can't think of his name now. He said, "Do you want to wash your hands?" I said, "No, I'll just watch it," because I was really, really new into even understanding a piece of this stuff. You know, I loved sitting and studying and starting to get some understanding. When we got to that, I thought, well, I need to process that first. It just didn't seem to fit. It was very much ritualistic.
You weren't sure which rabbi they were following on washing their hands.
I didn't even know there was such a thing as a rabbi.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, which one were they following? Because I'm sure there's all kinds of
Each
different.
rabbi had a different rule
There you
for
go.
washing your hands, probably.
Which, going back to Matthew 15 and Mark 7, what was Yeshua saying? Come on, guys. Why are you doing this when it's all just right here, simple? It's not burdensome, it's not heavy, it's right here. Moses, God says it's not heavy. You don't have to go up to heaven to get it, or go down to bring it, or go across the sea, or it's right here. And think about this, just popping in my head. When Moses says, this is right here before you, did anyone
Have that?
in the desert have one of these?
No.
No. Did a lot of people, even in Yeshua's time, have one of these? No. Maybe been some wealthy that had Torah scrolls and things like that. So they were in a way a disadvantage, in some ways an advantage, but in some ways a disadvantage, because they couldn't really go test it very much. Except who did test it? When Paul is out speaking, the Bereans, they went back to make sure, because they somehow had access to something. I don't know whether they had all that scrolls or what situation. I have not researched that out. But they tested it daily, which we're going to get to here coming up real quick. Okay.
Can I just make one little comment?
Yes, please.
I'm listening to a rabbi and he teaches, and one of the interesting things is even though they have all these different little hand washing rituals and different things they do, they're amazed because as they're bringing back people to Israel from these different countries, they're finding, the pockets of Jews. They all have very similar little traditions like that they can recognize, even though they may be a little tweak, but they're still similar
There, yeah.
enough that they recognize them. And they're wondering themselves, how is it that all of these people in so many different places know this stuff, but yet it's not written anywhere? Like when they're bringing people from Africa, those people don't have any written stuff, but they're still doing the same stuff. And so they're amazed themselves that it's been, carried, all over the place.
The power of
Yeah.
speech.
Did
Yeah,
you know
just the
that,
tradition.
now we can be sanctimonious on this sometimes.
Oh, sure.
But if you'll notice, when they had the plague, the Jewish community didn't have the plague like everybody else did. Okay? When you had doctors operating, the Jewish doctors, where everyone went to the Jewish doctors because the Jewish doctors were more successful than, and so maybe these were not as made up. Now, there are some that are probably,
Sure.
but there are many of these were probably really passed down by God himself to the people. To do, that he did not consider it important enough to put in the Bible, but he may have passed quite a few things down to them because from what I've read, the oral law, there are kind of two different oral laws. There's the oral law supposedly given to Moses.
Right.
And then there was additions to it that are also called oral law. And so the additions are the ones that he was criticizing because he has different words, tradition, boom, and he's got one word for traditions and then another word for traditions. And so there's traditions that were passed down by God himself, and then there were traditions that man himself made up.
That's what the Jewish people teach, that Moses was given oral instructions, and that's what the first Talmud is.
But they say but then the people started adding to it, and when they added to it, these are the ones that were not.
Okay.
If you go back to the whole concept of the Torah, two parts to it. One is how to have a relationship with God, the other one is how to live. This, as far as eating clean food, taking care of your neighbor, all of this is a theme behind it.
Right.
We've gone and expanded on that. This place may not have it, but so many places have the little stuff you put in your hands to sanitize your hands. All these things are just, now, there's no law that says you have to do that,
Right.
but it sure does keep you healthy.
Yeah.
God gave all this to us to keep us healthy. And
So it would go well with you.
that's where,
Yeah.
the whole theme behind everything.
So the form versus function. The function of the commandments and eating clean food is so you don't get sick. I mean, part of it, and part of the function is to commune with God. But, okay, anything else on Sabbath real quick, as we're
I
gonna
would like to say something.
move on? Yes.
I think you said sign, cup. What a blessing to be, I just learned this last week, what a blessing to be part of that covenant. What a privilege and blessing to be part of that.
And wait till, speaking of covenant, wait till Rico gets here May 11th. I know I keep saying it, but when Rico comes on May 11th, if you're not here, you're gonna miss something big, because he's gonna talk about covenants, I hope. I don't know, I haven't talked to him myself. Rico, hey, what are you talking about? But if he brings anything about the covenants, the covenant with God, and if you go against his covenant, guess what? Legally, the language of the day, you open yourself up to a covenant lawsuit from the creator of the universe.
Yeah, he does a great teaching on the
It
special
is.
covenant.
Oh,
was
you
gonna say
just
that.
wait. This is like threshold covenant, we don't even remember what threshold covenant is talking about. This is so applicable, so putting a whole lot more stuff together. Not threshold covenant, not important, because it is absolutely wonderful. It is a great teaching lesson. But he has studied ancient Near East culture for the last year, because this story that we read today, this Torah portion, didn't happen in a vacuum. It didn't happen isolated from the whole entire world. There were people living around him. I mean, and when they went, going to go on the land, he said, I'm going to drive out all these people. So there were people there. It wasn't like, this is an empty lot here, let's go take it. So there's a lot of things that culturally and of the times and the languages and the laws of land and things that it just adds so much and makes other things make a whole lot more sense.
Right, like when I first came into Torah, my very first few weeks of Shabbat, where I thought that we had to Sabbath candles. I didn't know what they meant, and I thought we had to have challah bread and we had to have wine or grape juice. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Why are we having to do all this? And I didn't know. But then, yeah, I must look real good tonight. But then I had to learn that those were just traditions, and now we do it sometimes, and it's it's special to us, but we don't do it all the time. It's not like we have to have this for Shabbat, we have to have this. But I can see in my own personal life, aside from the Torah, growing up, that every time we gather together as a family for our family reunion, or any time that we gathered, any special occasion, I grew up in a family that was very German. And so we always made German egg noodles. And the making of German egg noodles is a long process. And we would all gather and go through making the dough and rolling it out, and then cutting it and letting it sit there, and then you have to cook it, and then it's just a long process. But that was a tradition that was passed down in my family. And so I can see where people across the other side of the world, we're not really so much like them. So it's hard for us to see, oh, well, they do that. But sometimes we're learning little things, and it's okay to do some of those things. It's special to them, but I think it's okay, but when you're trying to completely align your life to something that some rabbi said, and that's not directly in the Torah, that's where that's where I've learned it's just too much. it becomes
Because then you're,
burdensome.
because then your focus.
If I can just focus on the
Shift.
Torah, then I know that that's Yahweh himself.
Because our tradition's
Yeah.
bad.
No, not
Jewish
now.
tradition's bad.
No.
Yeah.
So,
So, but, yeah,
but
Yes.
can traditions
yeah.
be bad? How?
They're burdensome.
They go against Torah.
They could go against Torah. They can be burdensome. If your focus shifts from Yahweh to traditions, Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord by not following him completely. Followed him part way, but not all the way. So his focus shifted some. Yes.
Well, we have our traditions too.
We sure do.
Like, you got to brush your teeth every morning.
Yeah.
And some of them, you got to brush your teeth every time you eat anything.
Yeah.
And then you have some that do this, some do that. You know, they go to the extremes. So we are not in.
We're not exempt.
We talk about Judaizing, but we don't talk about Christianizing.
We don't talk about
Well, our holiday traditions that we used to have were humongous.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, yes.
Talk about burdens.
All right, before we open that can of worms, that could go on for hours. about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I do actually have things on my notes today, believe it or not. No, anyway, okay, what I really wanted to get into today, something that I was going to actually talk about last time I was up here, but things didn't work out to do that. Read, God said, no, not yet. Exodus 35, verse 4 through 9. And something that really hit me with all this. So Moses said to the whole Israelite community, this is what Yahweh has commanded. From what you have, which is key, from what you have, take an offering for Yahweh. Everyone who is willing to bring to Yahweh an offering of gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet yarn and fine linen, goat hair, ram skins dyed red, and hides of sea cows, acacia wood, olive oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil and for the fragrant incense, and onyx stones and other gems to be mounted on the ephod and the breastpiece. Okay.
Back in verse 7, did you say sea cows?
That's what the NIV translates it as. And one thing
Mine
too-
says porpoise skins. I mean,
Yeah,
what are you doing with these guys? They're in the desert.
Some says bad.
Some say giraffes, some say badger, so.
Yeah. Nobody-
And one thing too, before we get into the tabernacle, who agrees there is probably layers and layers of symbolism in the colors, in the fabrics, in everything? Who knows everything about those? Okay, good, we're not gonna talk about those today,
Oh,
because I don't know much about it.
you know that the blue that they use is made out of a particular type of snail.
Now, are you talking about? The snail's coming back, right?
The snail supposedly died, was extinct. And then just a few years ago, they discovered that he wasn't only not extinct, but there was quite a few of them out there.
So you get the same blue.
So that they can now make so if they decide to build the temple again, they can use the same glue that's necessary to make whatever they're going to make.
All right,
I thought that,
that's very interesting. I like that. Okay, so doesn't matter. We don't know what it was. It was a cover.
We'll find out.
We'll
That's
find
why
out
they
eventually.
don't put
Yeah.
glue in their zits.
Oh, I got stuff to talk about. Don't worry. Okay,
They don't put blue in their zits because they don't know what shade of blue it was, and so in order to not break the commandment, they don't do it at all.
which means they break the commandment to put blue in.
Right, yeah.
Okay, circular arguments. Okay, let's go to verse 5. From what you have, take an offering for Yahweh. From what you have. Does it say, from what you can go to Home Depot and buy? From what you can go to Walmart and buy? From what you have, take an offering. Everyone who is what? Willing. Is this everyone bring an offering? Is that what this says? No. Everyone who is willing. Where does the will come from?
In your heart.
The Spirit in your heart. Because you can be willing and make it look like, well, I brought all this stuff. But if you weren't willing to do it, is it going to be accepted?
Kind of like Ananias and Sapphira.
Kind of like. So they were willing to bring all this stuff. And you think about it, let's jump over to something. Hang on just a second. Let me check a reference real quick.
That was a mean God. That was a mean God in the Old Testament.
I heard that comment back there. That was a mean God. You made him bring all this stuff. No, he didn't
We
make him
like
bring
Jesus because
anything.
he's the nice God, and God in the Old Testament was the mean God.
Oh, yeah.
Well, look at how they got the stuff they had. They were just given it by the Egyptians. They practically
Well,
forced them to take all that.
Some of it, we're actually going to talk about that. Some of it they were getting. Some of it they weren't. We're going to talk about that here in just a
They
minute.
plundered
They did. Oh, did they ever
Well-
plunder Egypt? Yes, Jay. So,
I got quite a little rabbit trail here I'm gonna throw out.
all right.
it. Get out the
Larry?
guns.
Wait a minute. Elmer, not shoot, kind of set the rabbits out. Go ahead.
The, why did God really want this tabernacle?
Function. What's the function?
So we could do the well.
Now, just hang on to your thoughts here.
All right.
Because if you look at what God has done, mountains, valleys, waterfalls, the ocean, the splendor, the sunsets, the sunrises, and all the things that are just awesome. Why did he really want this tabernacle? I'm gonna turn this back around. This is for man to be able to relate. This is something that man got to put his hands on to do that relationship. God, I can't build a mountain. I mean, there's different things. I can't make the clouds float.
Yeah.
God has all this power and all this majesty and all this, just, it's so much more than what these craftsmen could do. But wouldn't it be awesome to have actually got to build one of those poles, just one of them that you actually got to touch and to work on and to file down and to cut to the length and to make perfect. Nevertheless, the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
But yet, this is just something there that God didn't need that. But God allowed that for man to come together as a place to meet.
Because like I said, this whole section, 35 to 40, is a lot of form.
So it is,
That's
like I say,
function.
kind of going off a different direction, but something to look
Kind
at.
of similar though, because that's a good reason for why they were willing.
Yeah.
They wanted
Exactly
a
why
part
they
of
were
it.
willing,
They wanted to
'cause-
be a part of it.
Yeah, back up just a few pages, Exodus 31. Yeah, sorry.
I like what Jay's saying. It's very, it's making me look at it differently. But all of a sudden, in my mind popped, he said that, or David calls Jerusalem eventually his footstool. And where do most people learn from their masters? At their feet. And that just popped in my head while you were talking about that, Jay.
I was just thinking of Mickey working and building, just carpenter work and all of that, and after he finishes, that feeling,
You have a
that just,
connection to it.
yeah, I did
Yeah.
that. But not just for you, you're doing it for him.
Yeah.
So being willing, I don't know, I just had this.
Obviously, the whole relationship, that he said that he wanted them to make him a dwelling place too. And then the whole relationship of the tabernacle to us being the tabernacle and the place for him to dwell. I mean, there's just quite a bit there.
There's just a few things there.
To him, it was kind of like home away from home.
Yes, Larry.
And also, Moses was up with God in the mountain, and the cloud was over. And so, until God gave him everything, it didn't matter, God would meet with him. But once the tabernacle was built, and his presence entered the tabernacle, no longer was Moses able to enter.
It's true.
But the tabernacle was a means to approach
Exodus 31, just back up a few pages, so we're going to read a few verses here, right in the first part of 31, because it kind of ties into this whole Torah portion here, this whole section. 31:1. Then Yahweh said to Moses, See, I have chosen Bezalel, the son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with skill, ability, and knowledge in all kinds of crafts. Does that sound familiar, like what we just read? What was just read just a little bit ago? It's almost word for word. To make artistic designs for work in gold, silver, and bronze, to cut and set stones, to work in wood, to engage in all kinds of craftsmanship. Moreover, I have appointed Aholiab, son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, to help him. I have also given skill to all the craftsmen to make everything I have commanded you. The tent of meeting, the ark of the testimony, the atonement cover, all the furnishings, table, articles, lampstand, etc., etc., etc. So all these people that all of a sudden learned how to do this, or had known this all along, but realized God gave them this ability to do this. You know, did Moses build any of the tabernacle? No. What was his job?
Tell them what to do.
Yeah, he's like the what?
He was the architect.
He's the architect. And then Bezalel and Aholiab were the general contractors. You know, and they got all the subs doing all this work, and they did work too. Okay, back over to 35. I just wanted to bring that little point in that, you know, God had given them the ability to make all these things, and so when we ask,
He put a spirit of wisdom and understanding and knowledge in them
yes,
too.
His Spirit. I thought the Spirit didn't come till Pentecost in Acts 2:38.
That was just the wind.
That's just the wind. No, the Spirit is in from way, like over deep.
Obviously,
Yes.
the mention of the women who were skilled, who weak, you know, who were skilled and willing.
Yes, and
Because
willing.
there was a willingness he mentioned in them as well, so they were
Yeah.
volunteers.
Something that we're looking at on Wednesday night at our house, we're studying Romans now. We've went through Galatians, we did 1 John, looked at different things. I was looking at a lot of Paul. Paul, kind of like Abraham, Paul was found faithful by God and then given work to do. Abraham, he's going to be faithful and teach. Here's all your stuff to do. It wasn't the other way around. And we've tried to get it where we can do all this stuff and then we'll be approved. Well, you're approved before you're given the stuff to do, the way Scripture lays it out. You know, Moses hadn't done anything, and God called him from a bush and said, here's all this work I'm going to give you to do. So, because he knew his heart, because he knows our heart, deceitfully wicked above all things. But he knows our heart and our willingness to serve. And if he sees that, now, I'll give you some work to do. You know, the Israelites, when they left Egypt, what did they do? What kind of work did they do to get out of there? They were painters, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
1, 2, 3, and that's it. That's all they had to do.
in both instances, whether it was Moses or those putting the blood over their door, they basically, well, Moses, he denied the wealth. He denied this world.
Yeah.
To be able to seek God.
Yeah.
He denied, I mean, awesome things in this world. Those who painted their doors,
Yeah.
they said, hey, we've been instructed, and we're willing to take the risk, whatever that risk is. We're going to abandon all.
Give everything we've got. Because we've seen what he can do. You know, because the 7 plagues didn't affect the Hebrews, the Israelites. They saw him, but it didn't directly affect them.
The first 3 plagues did.
Exactly.
It got their attention.
Yes, it did.
And
then
then
God set them apart.
Then the next 7 says, but we are different.
Yes.
And God has made us different, has set us apart. So we want to stay apart because we don't want to go back to those first 3 plagues.
Yeah, no, not at all. Until they got out in the desert, it's like, oh, we just go back to Egypt, please. This is hard. Okay.
So if the first 3 was to get their attention, where would that relate to us today? Because we're gonna get the first 3.
What if they've already happened?
Melissa
Well, that's
Elwin's
already
teaching
processed.
on Passover this week. So she's tying Revelation to the Passover,
Yeah,
those
I've seen
plagues.
that.
It's really good.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's see. One thing I wanted to point out that I didn't realize until really last night.
And West Texas already has their water all messed up.
A lot of people have water messed up.
Might not be red, but there's some people's got a little rust in it, so maybe it is red.
Maybe. All right, one thing I wanted to point out that just kind of, I look for patterns all the time because God's got patterns, right? And those of you who know me know that I'm a number 7 kind of junkie. I look at a lot of number 7s and try and lay them on the menorah and all that kind of stuff. There's more 7s in this little Torah portion, right? There's one that repeats 4 different times just in this Torah portion. And it's the order of the materials that are going to be given, what they're going to be given for, the construction, the instructions about the assembly, and then the assembly are all given in a similar order, or in the same order. And just for your information, this is the order. Construct the tabernacle, or bring offerings for the tabernacle, or here's how you're going to assemble it. The Ark of the Covenant, the table of the presence, table of the presence, the lampstand, the incense altar, the burnt offering altar, and the basin for washing. Look at it in this Torah portion. 4 times you'll see this progression. And it's just kind of interesting that there's 7 pieces of furniture, so to speak. One, the whole thing itself. And then these 6 pieces, which we looked at a few weeks ago, is how we are supposed to conform to each of these pieces. How Yeshua is each of these pieces. How we're supposed to live our lives is each of these pieces. Because we are the tabernacle. What I'm not going to do is get into the menorah and all this other stuff, because I'm still kind of trying to see if how that all works together, because I've got some different thoughts that have come to my head.
Yeah, I've heard that the Ark of the Covenant represents the heart. The tabernacle is the body. The Ark of the Covenant is the heart.
So on and so forth, yeah. Which we did, when I taught last time, we kind of looked at that coming from the outside in, getting into the heart of the whole entire thing. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Compartments or whatever is in the heart, but,
4.
and then 3 other things going out, I mean, they're like components.
I don't know. There's a lot of, like I said, a lot of symbolism, a lot of deep things we can dig in here.
2 arteries and 2 main veins.
2 arteries and 2 veins.
And then you have the,
That may go to,
Takes the
look
physical
at that for
to
that.
show the spiritual.
See how that branches off, right? But it branches the same. Jay's got just to give you guys a heads up, Jay's got something he's working on that.
Oh, you're gonna tell it.
No, I'm not going to say word. It's really cool. That you will want to, whenever we get the right timing, the right spot for about a 30-minute thing, it's cool. Shavuot would be perfect for it.
Oh, it would, wouldn't it?
Because right after Rico's been here, so not much you have to worry about following up from Rico.
No
No pressure there at all.
There'll be 4 people here.
Which will then turn into 9, which will... All right, okay, let's see. Where do I want to go with this? Everybody doing okay?
yes.
Need a bathroom break or FBS relief break or anything? Okay, good. We got more to do. We still haven't done math, so we got to do math before the day's done because it's going to be just as fun. Okay. Let's go to